You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Epa, what up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. I'm your boy, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders Undercover Capes. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today, we got two leading ladies in comics right now in indie comics. They got this kick-ass comic book via Fanbase Press called Nuclear Power. If you guys have not heard about it, we're about to put you on. So pull out your wallets because you're going to be buying these books like ASAP, all right? I'm very proud and happy to introduce the one and only Desiree Proctor and Erica Harrell. Epa, what up, ladies? How you doing?
Hello. Hi.
Hey, I can see you now. Check that out.
I know. I'm going to turn the camera off. I just wanted to say hi first.
Yay. Hey,
it won't cut out. Bye.
Gotcha. So awesome. So thanks for taking some time, ladies, to chit chat about this amazing comic book you guys got via Fanbase Press. I mean, I'm digging it. The art, the story, the timeline. I mean, that imagination was going wild with this book. I'm digging it.
Yeah. We went a little crazy. We just kind of, we've always in our writing career written for other people, and this was our chance to write whatever we wanted. So that's exactly what we did.
Nice. So let's get into the origins of the fandom and the geekiness. I always love to hear, like, what was your first dabble into, the pop culture realm? What was that first taste of it that you said, that was the point that I fell in love,
With fandom in general, like I grew up in Florida, Tampa specifically, and at school, like it was like the 90s and the X-Men cartoon series was on, and it was like I loved it. I mean, it was like the only cartoon that had like strong female characters, and like Rogue was awesome and Storm was awesome and Jean Grey was awesome. So that was kind of my first, thing, was always like fighting with other kids of like who I could play, which X-Men I could play.
Nice. How about you?
Oh man, I mean, I grew up with the 1989 Batman and like the Supergirl movie from 1984. Like, that movie came out before I was born, but that was like the only movie that had like a female superhero in the title role for a long time. So
very long time.
Yeah, I just watched that all the time. And then I was a military brat. So growing up and always being like the perpetual new kid, I tend to escape to like books and comics a lot. So, I was just born to be a nerd.
I love that perpetual new kid. God damn, once again, I'm starting over. Jeez, that must be tough and that must suck. I can't imagine how that must feel growing up that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents even had it worse because they were also military brats, and my mom went to like 18 schools by the time she graduated high school. Yeah, it's crazy. I was lucky. I only went to 6.
Oh, a comparison. Wow, she went 3 times more than you. Wow, amazing. Yeah, basic math, folks. Yay, check that out. Anyway,
you got really fast. I was impressed.
So let's talk about when you guys started dabbling. So you guys, fell in love with what you guys fell in love with. But what was that first take when you started dabbling? Like you wanted to, start getting into the business.
Well, we both ended up going to the University of Central Florida in Orlando, and we went to film school there, and both ended up moving to LA slightly at separate times. But once we were out in LA, we started going to Comic-Cons together, and, other like smaller conventions like LA Comic-Con, and, really kind of bonded over all of the fandoms that we loved, and like, waiting in line with a bunch of smelly people like for Hall H for hours.
Oh my God, you're not lying. You are not lying about them lines, because here I'm in Orlando myself, and I did my first MegaCon. And I was waiting for someone to finish speaking to a creator. And let me tell you, I was like, guy, like deodorant, please. You know what I mean? It's inexpensive. You get one of those dollar bottles or something, do something.
Just do something. But we really kind of bonded over those experiences. And we began writing together and selling more on the TV side of things, and sold our first project to Amazon, which was called Fritter, the Superpowered Hush Puppy.
Was that on purpose, though, that you wanted to go that route?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like ever since I was really little, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment. I think it goes back to being like the awkward new kid. So I found my people in like the theater kids in school. And, I started writing my own plays because that was the most accessible thing to me at the time when I was like in middle school. And so like I went into film and television knowing that I wanted to move to Los Angeles and like pursue a career as a writer. And I wanted to do my own comic books even when I was in middle school. But my friends and I didn't know how to draw. So we ended up like writing the comics and then didn't know how to draw. So we turned into radio shows.
And we still don't know how to draw. So we'll have to talk about our artist, Lynn Yoshii.
Gotcha. Oh man, Lynn is amazing. I mean, amazingly talented. The art in this book is just gorgeous. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna get into that in a little bit. So let's talk about that first time you pitched. Then, so you created this project, and you were talking about, was this a pet thing? What was it?
It's called Fritter the Superpowered Hush Puppy. And it was about a fried hush puppy who had to fight an evil German frying pan.
Oh man, I love you guys, ladies' imagination. That smog in LA is mixed with a whole bunch of stuff, I guess.
It's definitely the smog going to our brains for sure.
And so how was that experience though? Was it a scary experience when you first went up there pitching something that you guys created?
Well, I think we pitched it the first couple of times. We did it kind of normal, maybe just in our normal speaking voices. And we were like, wait, this is supposed to be animation. It's supposed to be a little more pushed like a cartoon. Why don't we have a friend who was a composer? He wrote a little piece of music for us. And we like had the music and we had an artist do some images for us. And then we started performing it like in a crazy, like almost like old Superman radio like voice. So at that point, when you kind of like let go of looking cool, people were really taken in by the fact that it was like kind of like doing a show for them. So that's ultimately kind of what helped it sell.
Gotcha. Hey, that's what Stan Lee did. Apparently, he acted out parts in the comic books. Hey, this is how I want you to draw it, and he would act it out. I mean, what better way? And that craziness, people love it.
Yeah, and it makes sense because you're making something that's supposed to be entertaining. So when you're telling people about it, you should be entertaining.
Oh man, they do not want me to start acting out scenes. It's going to be insane.
That's part of the charm is how bad we were, though.
Hey, listen, learning curves, right? And I'm pretty sure you guys became pros. So what happened right after that? I mean, was it the journey become easier in getting work?
No, it became harder.
Really?
I mean, they say like the in Los Angeles, they say like getting the first job is really hard, and then getting the second job is even harder. And then after that, it gets a bit easier. But the first two jobs are always the hardest to get. Okay. But yeah, we sold that show. It didn't go to series, and then we ended up on a TV show, lasted a season, and then it got canceled. And then we ended up in video games, which we never thought we
Video games. What a segue.
Yeah, it was writing, but it was writing in kind of an interactive, choose your own adventure way. So we wrote for this company called Telltale Games.
Yes. Nice.
And they did like The Walking Dead Michonne and Minecraft Story Mode and Game of Thrones and Guardians of the Galaxy. And because we worked at Telltale, right at the same time, DC Comics was opening up their inaugural writers program, and in a requirement to apply, you had to have some material published. And we were like, video games are published. They're not books, and they're not comic books, but video games count. And we ended up applying, and we were the only women accepted, and like the only people who had come from like a TV and video game background. So it made our application pretty interesting to them.
Ooh, awesome. Love it.
The video games experience was really good too, because it was our first experience like taking somebody else's comic books and adapting them, adapting Walking Dead and Guardians of the Galaxy. And sure, it was for a different medium, but it was a nice way. It was nice like prep for going into comics. But then like comic book writing is the complete opposite of video game writing, where in video game writing, you're writing several hours worth of content. And comic book writing, you have like, you're trying to fit like things in like 25 words.
Oh, wow.
To fit in a little bubble.
So let's start talking about this. So is Nuclear Power your first project or no?
It's our first independent comic.
Independent, nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of indie, because indie rocks.
We're happy to be here.
Yes.
Awesome.
And
so what was your first project then, and how was the experience of working on that?
Well, our first comic book that we wrote was through the DC Comic program. We wrote an issue of Deadshot.
Oh, nice.
And that was like a really great experience to write a character that's such an anti-hero. And we got to change some of his origin story a bit, which was really cool.
Ooh.
So that was our very first comic book writing experience. And from that experience and going through the DC Comic writing program, that's how we got introduced to Fanbase Press. And that's how we met our artist, Lynn Yoshii, because she went through the artist program the same time we were going through the writing program.
Oh, cool. So she got selected too, but from the artistic side. Nice. Awesome.
Right.
Check you guys out. Ladies are killing it, yo, at DC. I love it.
Yeah, DC really brought us all together. Yeah, I mean, we went into the offices one day because the DC Comic writing program was all virtual. It was all on Zoom, before Zoom was cool. And we went into the artists, the writers, the DC Comics offices one day, and we saw like some of the artists' work through the program, and we saw Lynn's artwork, and we're like, who did that? We need to find her and get her to do our comic book.
Yes.
Nice.
And the drawing that she had done was a Wonder Woman sketch. And it was just kind of like on a whiteboard, which you wouldn't think that someone could do so much with Wonder Woman, a character we've seen so many times, and still make it stand out to the point where we were like, we need her. And that's
great choice indeed. Great choice indeed, folks. Let's start getting a little bit into Nuclear Power. Before I do that, though, I want to show off the trailer over here so you guys can see the beautiful art, that Lynn is creating about in this wonderful story created by the two ladies on screen. Check it out.
October of 1962. The Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union is at its peak when the unthinkable happens. Nuclear war. 60 years later, the remaining 13 states rose from the ashes to form the American Union, government by authoritarian Joint Chief of Staff, and protected by a border wall to keep out nuclear radiation. And the individuals who were enhanced by it. Nuclear Power, a 6-issue, creator-owned comic book series premiering in April 2021. A dark, poignant, alternate history tale that posits the lengths to which a government will go to protect or deceive its citizens. When the Joint Chief's dark secrets are revealed, will survivors on both sides of the wall join forces to fight for the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Or will their differences forever divide them? Nuclear Power has an all-star creative team, written by Desiree Proctor and Erica Harrell of Telltale Games' The Walking Dead Michonne, and illustrated by Lynn Yoshii of DC's Gotham City Garage and Inside the Loop. Issues number 1 through 6 of Nuclear Power will be released digitally through Comixology and Hoopla starting in April 2021. The series will be collected as a printed trade paperback for an October 2021 release, and is now available for pre-order at fanbasepress.com. Pre-orders made by August 1st of 2021 will receive exclusive signed prints of the single-issue covers, as well as an issue number 1 variant cover signed by the creative team. Visit fanbasepress.com today and click on the shop link to get your hands on some of the most original and thought-provoking indie comics on the market.
That is such an amazing book. Let me tell you, and please tell me, are you guys history buffs or what? Because you gave us the most craziest alternate history turn here ever. I'm digging it. So please begin to talk inspirations behind the craziness of the story.
Well, you
Yeah.
can definitely tell I'm a military brat from all of
Yes.
And my mom is Cuban. She came over from Cuba when she was about like 16 or 17 years old. And Desiree's mom is half Cuban, and like her family had come over much earlier, but there was a lot of like anti-Cuban sentiment, like especially right after and in the years preceding the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so it was something that kind of had affected both of our families at different, times in our lives, even though it was something that happened decades before we were born. So we were just really interested in that period of history and how there's not a lot of stories, and like people don't really know exactly how close we came to nuclear war. So we thought that was just like really cool, and then we wanted to add kind of a genre twist to it. And so when we tell people about it, we're like, it's like Handmaid's Tale meets X-Men.
Oh man. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we did a lot of research for the book. In the first issue, in the opening pages, the incident with the USS Randolph and the Soviet sub is an actual incident that happened, and the Soviet sub, thinking that they're under attack from the USS Randolph, almost fired some nuclear warheads, and it was one guy, one Soviet soldier who talked them out of it.
Wow.
And if he hadn't been there, or if he hadn't spoken up, like the war could have gone a very different direction. So Erica and I went and looked up all the strike zones of where the Soviets would have struck the US, and the US would have hit like Europe and what was called Manchuria and Russia. And when we saw like the amount of devastation, we realized that like both coasts of the United States would be gone, and what was left of our country would probably like reform in the middle, like around Chicago. And that's why in nuclear power, Chicago is the new capital of the new country that exists in what was the United States.
And you kept that number to 13, right? Colonies or states that have survived the crisis.
Kind of a callback to the original 13 colonies,
Yeah,
but
I
also
caught that. I was like, ooh,
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of subtle. It kind of goes by really quickly when we mention it, and it's not really brought up again. But it's definitely, there's a lot of nods to the original American Revolution in this, because we see this story as like a new revolution that's taking place.
It's an uber crazy revolution though, because obviously World War III happened. Apparently, homie wasn't there to talk him out of anything, and the world went nuts. Years have passed, and people, the world is trying to reform. At least our country is, but that's affected obviously the community. It's nuclear energy, right? So how did you come with those aspects and that kind of crazy twist that you put in there? Because wow, that blew my mind. Like, oh wow, these dirty bastards. Ooh.
Well, in regards to the like nuclear contamination, it's interesting because in real life, when we were first developing nuclear powered everything, like we didn't know what to do with the waste, and our own government thought, oh, we'll just bury it in the ground and it'll be fine, it'll go away. And it wasn't until several years later that, for example, the city of Burbank in California, there was a big military base there. Nuclear waste was buried in the ground in like the 50s and 60s. And in the 80s and 90s, people in Burbank started to develop cancer. And it was because the nuclear waste had like seeped into the water and affected the water, and it's still there. And so that was kind of part of the inspiration for us in terms of
how people would have realistically handled the contamination then, knowing what they knew, which was like, let's put up a wall around these bad areas. Like, we know they're bad, but that didn't necessarily keep out all of the contamination, because it was in the air, it was underground, it was in the water. And then we kind of followed that sort of in a grounded, sort of logical way of like, okay, well, if there was this much exposure, who, like, the people who were on the other side of the wall when this happened that had survived, and they were very exposed, what would the generations after them and themselves, like, what kind of powers would they develop? And we kept those like superpowers kind of like grounded in how, you know, nuclear energy works. So there's like splitting of atoms, which is why Iris can like split her form. And there's like the, you know, the intake and the release of energy, which is why Reed can like transfer power based in like nuclear fission.
Oh, man, let me tell you, this is the craziest world I've seen yet in this. Because I'm digging it, because it's alternate history, and everything you're saying is like, you know, those just moments. What if? Basically, what this whole thing is, it's like, what if that moment didn't happen? This guy wasn't there, you know. Oh wow, this is a scary book.
Yeah.
And then the art. Let me tell you, the art is gorgeous. So, like, do you guys have any input in the direction of the art, or you just say, "Here, this is the story. Go for it, girl."
Well, Lynn, you know, to her credit, she did all of the, you know, like drawing of the book. She did all of the lettering. She did all of the coloring herself.
Wow.
She had no one help.
Full package. Wow.
Full
Yeah.
package, which is
Crazy.
crazy and very unheard of, because most of the time, you know, you'll have somebody like ink it and then somebody do the color and then someone else do the lettering. But Lynn was taking on a monumental task, as well as doing the entirety of the book, all the pages. So she was like, okay, I need to, you know, streamline my process. I need to like make this doable for herself. And so she's very influenced by manga, and she's Japanese American. And so she kind of went in, and she was also very influenced by like the propaganda posters from like the Asian countries like China and like some in Japan. And so she kind of like went in that direction, making it a very cool, very clean lines in the book.
And that was also the reason for the almost dual chromatic look of the book, because she could only really have the time to just do a couple colors. And that was also part of the reason why we went for this Soviet era propaganda look for especially the first issue and the colors there. But then as we were going on in the story, you'll see that the colors change. And we did that to either indicate a change in location, a change in time, because we do have like a flashback, or to indicate like a change in tone, like mood of the story.
Yep, and let them see that gorgeous cover right there, number one.
Gosh.
Look at that. You're saying it's the use of the tones, the line work, everything. She is ill. I cannot wait to see more. Not just from her, but also from the nuclear power universe over here, because there's a lot of story to tell here.
Oh my gosh, there's so much story to tell. There's so much more that we could tell, because like we said, we looked at the strike zones of like what Russia and Europe would look like today, and we're like, oh man, we'd love to see what's going on over there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what piqued my interest here, because again, this is something that happened on a global scale, and we're just seeing, you know, this one side of what happened. And you know, now Walking Dead has got me hooked on, you know, seeing these more bigger universes and seeing, you know, what else happened elsewhere. How did they handle it? So I would be very curious to see how maybe in Europe they handle this.
Yeah, and also the places that weren't touched, like, you know, where did they go? So places like Africa and places like South America that were relatively unscathed, have they become like the world's superpowers?
Yeah. Oh my
God.
God.
The superpowers without the superpowers.
Yeah.
Ooh, true. Check that out. Because if they weren't affected, you know, there is no variance there. So now the variance, because that's what you call them. I love that word too. Well, there could be a market for them. Look at this. I mean, I'm seeing this whole grimy world now. This is going to be insane.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are we getting more? Are we going to get more?
Well, I mean, depending on the success of the book, and if people buy it and love it, and, you know, maybe it could even get adapted into other mediums like television or film. Like, we'd love to keep it going.
Okay. What would be your preference? If it could be adapted to anything, you know, comic book, video game, movie, which would be your preference? Animation.
I would say live action TV and then video game, because I think it would be a really fun open world video game where you could really explore things.
And you could be the option of being a variant or a soldier. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, where are you? You know, what country are you in?
Oh my gosh! All right, start writing the game, ladies. I'm ready. What platform are we getting it on? This is what I want to know.
It'll be all platforms. Very excited.
Hey, you come from that world, so why not make it happen? I'm digging it. So, the trade paperback was already released, right? So people could get that, and let's show the gorgeous cover there. Because look at that, folks, and here you get to see, a greater range of the cast, right?
Yes. Yeah, we
look
got
at
Reed
this.
and Iris and Claudia. It was very important for us when telling a story about like people with superpowers that our main character not have superpowers. Like that was something that, because you always hear from the sides of like the chosen ones, the people that have the powers, but you never really hear as much from the people that don't have the powers.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Talk about the guy with power here. Look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was inspired from, this cover was inspired by a book from the 1950s or 40s that was on
atomic energy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like, we love that image. And then of course Lynn designed this character like so well and made him super hot.
No, it's a great looking character. Now, so is this your first creator owned project?
Yes.
So how did that journey?
Press is nice. Our publisher, but we came to them and sort of pitched the idea, and then it became a creator owned, and then they help us distribute it.
Yeah, Barbara's awesome from Fanbase. I had her on not too long ago. Amazing, she's definitely somebody out there fighting for indie, and I dig it.
Yeah.
So was there any difference in from a creative perspective in handling something that's creator owned versus somebody else's property?
Oh my gosh, a big difference. I mean, we have so much more freedom, especially since Barbara and Bryant are so supportive of the talent, and they really want to help you like fulfill your vision. Whereas when we're adapting a video game, or we're writing for other comics or television, we're writing somebody else's ideas. And so you're trying to almost like mimic someone else's voice rather than showcase your own.
That's not to say though that like, Barbara and Bryant definitely had notes along the way and like helped us sort of like shape the story, and like we're there for feedback because we love collaborating and we love like the process of, getting notes. But sometimes even Lynn, our artist, was shocked when she would like get one of the comic strips and like say something terrible happened to several characters or one character in particular. And she's like, no, but I love them. Now you're going to make me draw this?
You evil people, you, my gosh.
We actually did save some characters because there was one script we turned into her and she was like, guys, this is it's too dark. Like, you can't do this. It's too much. I would stop reading after this. And we're like, oh, well, if you're that passionate about it, you better change it.
Okay, we'll give you a mercy save. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Just this time. Don't get used to it. You know what I mean? So are we going to get more creator-owned projects from you guys outside of nuclear power? Are we going to get anything else maybe from a different place? What's popping? Because you ladies are extremely talented. Like I said, I was hooked like a fish reading this book.
Thank you. Well, in terms
well
of creator owned, we hope to have some more creator owned stuff coming up, but we were contacted out of the blue by Marvel, and we're writing something for their Marvel Voices Comunidades, which is their Latinx anthology, which is coming out in December.
Oh, word! You're gonna do Comunidades. Wepa, I can't wait. This is awesome.
So we were able to get a character. She's also from Florida, and she's half Seminole and half Cuban, and we're really, really excited about that.
How do you guys feel that it's about finally seeing so much representation, and especially coming from the big two, which was hesitant at first, kind of to do things, because if you hear stories from Don McGregor, he was trying to break the mold. He had horror stories from the Marvel bullpen back then, and not to see how open they are to listening. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
I mean, it's amazing. It's kind of, in a way, hard to believe because it's across the board. It's been like a very big push, not only on the comic side, but the television and the video game side all around. I mean, we're currently writing for a new Disney Channel series that's about a Mexican American family where they have like luchador masks that are magical and give them superpowers, and they fight crime.
Oh, I'm digging it. Jeez.
And so it's just to see like all around this like desire to see more like diverse content and cast, and like, I mean, I can't believe it. I think it's going to just keep going like that as the world becomes more international. Or I mean,
it's like not only is there a push for it, but there seems to be more of an appetite for it. And, you know, not just Latin stories, but things like Squid Games, you know, where it's like 190 million people watched something with subtitles. Like, that's huge. That was like very nuanced and also very culturally specific. So that's really cool to be a part of, you know, this, and to have, you know, Nuclear Power and Marvel, and also, you know, Ultraviolet and Black Scorpion is the Disney show that Desiree mentioned.
Hey, oh, look at that name too. I can't wait. And thank you for doing stuff for nuestra comunidad. You know, I appreciate that. Again, me growing up, I didn't see much of myself. You know, I was something silly, Chapulín Colorado. You know what I mean? And that was silly. You know, it's nice to see that you guys are having fun, you know, with our culture and doing awesome stuff with that and bringing great representation. So, ladies, kudos to you.
Thank you.
I wish you guys not, but you know, like success, crazy success. I can't wait to see that TV show now. I want to see Nuclear Power as a game and the live action now. You got me hooked. Are you guys gonna be doing any conventions before we go? Is there any conventions on the horizon, either this year or next?
We hope next year, just because of, you know, the uncertainty of everything that was happening in the world. And we're hoping to make a few appearances next year, but we don't have anything specifically lined up. But it's going to be like where Fanbase goes, we will, you know, probably try to go with them.
Awesome. Yeah, hell yeah, yo. Rock out that Fanbase booth.
Yes.
They be killing it. I remember seeing them at San Diego. Wow, a lot of people. I was trying to talk to Barbara, but it was like impossible. She's very busy.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, their comic book Quince was like a big hit.
Quince, bilingual. Yeah, man. When I forgot the gentleman's name, his last name. Because for me, I never, you know, I wasn't familiar with the last name, and I said, wow, this guy, is he Latino? I'm not sure. Man, he hit me on Twitter quick. Yeah, just so you know, yes, I am Latino. Like, oh, all right, brother, thank you. With the name, you know, not sound Calisec, something like that, right?
Yes. One of the writers on the show we're on now is Mexican American, first generation, and you know, he has a Jewish last name.
No, they confuse you. Like, wait a minute, what? Wow, it's again showing how global and diverse we're getting and mixed, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing, though. It is. I love it. This is what we should be. We're human beings. Come on, people, let's have a good time. Stop the beef. Let's talk about good comics like Nuclear Power. You know, made by these powerful ladies that are smashing it in video games and TV, comics. What else? Are you guys gonna have your own podcast soon? Because you guys got to. Becoming like the queens of all media. So you got video games, comics, right? TV. Now we got to conquer radio and podcast. So are you guys going to do a show or what?
Oh man, maybe this is when I revive that radio show I had in middle school.
I feel like we already talk to each other on Zoom all day when we're in the writer's room. So like nobody wants to listen to that.
Hey, but ladies, you guys have been awesome. I really appreciate your time today, folks. Look, I've been showing it right there. You can buy the whole collected trade right now of Nuclear Power at fanbasepress.com. Or if you're a digital person, you know, I'm a print man, I want to go to Fanbase, you know, get that real book in so that way you can get it autographed when they go to a convention next year.
Yeah.
Right? Get that. Go to Hoopla, Comics Plus, or Comixology. Again, Nuclear Power from Fanbase Press. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for what you do. Give you your flowers. You guys rock. Much continued success on your journey. And I hope to have you back on. So when we talk about the video game and how that process went for Nuclear Power. Can't wait.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely.
Right. Let's do it. Folks, you know what it is? My outro says everything you guys need to do. All right. Thanks for tuning in. And hasta la próxima. Much love, mi gente. Wepa!
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.